Welcome to Hockey Whiz Talks podcast. In this podcast, I'll be talking about surprising and disappointing players at the 2026 Olympics. The 2026 Winter Olympics men's ice hockey tournament is currently in its final stages in Milan, Italy, with the finals being played on Sunday. With that said, it's a good time to take a look at the surprising and disappointing players in the tournament. The most surprising player at the Winter Olympics in Milan, Cortina, is Macklin Celebrini of Canada. At just 19 years old, Macklin Celebrini has solidified himself as a legitimate superstar at the world stage, scoring a goal in his very first Olympic game, scoring a goal on a penalty shot, and was dominant in their quarterfinals matchup against Czechia with a 3-point performance, including assisting on the game-winning goal. Celebrini has 10 points so far in this tournament and is Canada's leading goal scorer. He might just be one of the most impactful 19-year-olds ever to play at the Olympics, in a tier that only includes Wayne Gretzky in terms of impact on the team. Another surprising player at the 2026 Olympics is Leonardo Giannoni of Switzerland. Giannoni has been the defining Swiss goalie of his generation. He's not an NHL name, but in Europe, especially the National League, in Switzerland, he's a titan. Giannoni's resume in Switzerland is absurdly stacked, with multiple National League championships, playoff MVP level performances consistently among the league's top save percentage leaders, and a reputation for being unbeatable in elimination games. He's the equivalent of a dynasty goalie. The fans who have followed Giannoni in his National League career wouldn't be surprised, but NHL fans who only watch the NHL product might be surprised that at 38, he's been leading the Swiss success with a .949 save percentage and saving 2.5 more goals than expected through 3 games. Slovakia's breakout core is another surprising aspect of the 2026 Olympics. Slovakia might be building a core of young dynastic level players who could be a threat on the international stage for a long time. Starting with their best player and star, Juraj Slafkovský, who is an Olympic ice wrecking ball, completely dominating defensemen with his puck protection, net front chaos creation, and playing like a true top-line driver. Simon Nemec became one of the best defensemen in the entire tournament, controlling pace against teams like Finland and Sweden, logged massive minutes without drop-off, and showed elite transition play on Olympic ice. Because of Nemec's breakout play, Slovakia went from scrappy to structurally dangerous. The real revelation for Slovakia has been in goal, with Samuel Hlavák, who has delivered tournament-stealing performances, including the upset over Finland. Hlavák gave Slovakia a chance in every game, rarely gave up momentum, killing goals, and thrived under heavy shot volume, sporting a .934 save percentage. Dalibor Dvorsky showed flashes of why he was considered by many as a top 10 talent in his draft year. He has elevated his play and looks to be Slovakia's #1 center for a long time. Martin Pospisil became Slovakia's heartbeat with his relentless forechecking, retrievals, and momentum swings. He set the tone in every game, created turnovers that led to goals, and played with controlled aggression. Their depth pieces picked up the slack when needed, chipping in timely goals, energy shifts, playing well defensively, and had zero panic under pressure. Switzerland without Kevin Fiala is one of the most fascinating tactical pivots in the 2026 Olympic tournament. With Fiala, they play like a modern transition-driven top 6 powered team. Without him, they revert to something older, harder, and very Swiss, a style built on structure, suffocation, and collective precision. Switzerland leans heavily into its traditional identity, which is neutral zone trapping, controlled breakouts, shot suppression, and slowing down the tempo of the game. The centerpiece of this tactic is goaltender Leonardo Giannoni if and when the defense collapses. The Swiss controlled the majority of the game against Finland, showcasing a masterpiece of defensive hockey. But you can only hold a team like Finland down for so long. Despite losing to Finland in the quarterfinals, the Swiss more than surpassed expectations for them in this tournament. Nick Olsson is the kind of player who punches above his club-level profile when the format shifts to Olympic hockey. Denmark doesn't have the type of depth that Canada, USA, Finland, or Sweden has, so players like Olsson have become essential because they can stabilize the entire structure. He was Denmark's system glue, taking on tough matchups defensively, being a disrupting force on the forecheck, and providing versatility. Olesen was definitely one of Denmark's better players at the Olympics, especially against the US. Latvia's identity at every major tournament has been built on goaltending resilience. Even when they're outskilled, they're rarely outworked, and their goaltending is the reason why they're staying in games that should be blowouts. Elvis Merzlikins was the emotional and technical anchor in the 26 Olympics for Latvia, facing tough matchups against the US, Sweden, and Denmark. He was instrumental in keeping a Latvian team that was severely overmatched in skill in games against superior competition. And now a word from our sponsor. Check out my scouting blog at hockeywiz777scouting.com. Listen to my scouting blog podcast on podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/hockeywiz777scouting. Evaluating Leon Draisaitl's performance at the 2026 Winter Olympics involves a balance between his record-setting individual production and the disappointing early exit for Team Germany. Draisaitl was Germany's statistical engine, finishing as the team's leading scorer. His 7 points are the highest total ever recorded by a German player in an Olympic tournament featuring NHL talent. He consistently led the team in usage, logging over 24 minutes against France and approximately 28 minutes in the quarterfinals loss against Slovakia. In a 6-2 elimination loss to Slovakia, the Slovakian defense successfully smothered Draisaitl, rendering him largely ineffective in standard play despite a secondary assist on a Lucas Reichel goal. Other big-name NHL forwards include Sam Reinhart and Shea Theodore of Canada, Jake Guentzel of the USA, and Thomas Hertl of Czechia. Sam Reinhart struggled to mesh with McDavid and McKinnon, played too much on the perimeter, and didn't drive the middle of the ice. Shea Theodore was relatively absent and nearly invisible on a dominant Canadian team, managing only 1 assist in his first 3 games. Jake Guentzel couldn't generate controlled entries, didn't adapt to the wider ice, and was pushed to a secondary role. USA's third line outplayed him, which says everything. Thomas Hertl went without a point in his first 4 games and was noted for taking bad penalties. Sweden's overall performance at the 2026 Olympics was very disappointing. Sweden tried to play a more faster, more aggressive, more creative style, a break from their traditional structured, methodical identity. The problem was half the roster thrived in it and half didn't. This created a split personality. The top 6 forwards looked dangerous. Veteran forwards looked uncomfortable, and defensemen were caught between activating and staying home. Sweden's biggest disappointment was the lack of consistent scoring from big-name NHL forwards such as Elias Pettersson and Jesper Bratt. Patterns that emerged included too much perimeter play, not enough middle lane drives, reliance on individual skill instead of connected offense, and chemistry that never settled. Swedish power play lacked a true buffer threat, over-relied on point shots, didn't generate cross-team passes, and became predictable by Game 2. Philip Gustafsson struggled mightily with alarming mistakes against Italy and a poor performance against Finland, which resulted in him being scratched in favor of Jacob Markstrom. Rasmus Andersson scored 0 points in his first 2 games and was benched for Sweden's win over Slovakia. Sam Halam's deployment of players was very questionable and left fans wondering lineup decisions in-game. Germany's top players were competitive, their middle 6 was promising, but their bottom players were where the cracks showed. They lacked serious secondary scoring depth. The bottom 6 was terrible, and it got evident when they played better teams that they lacked structure and depth. Philipp Grubauer gave Germany 1 elite game versus Denmark and was pretty stabilizing in net, enough to stay competitive. However, it was not enough to offset Germany's defensive breakdowns against top nations. Check out my hockey blog at hockeywiztalkshockey.blogspot.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at hockeywiz777. In my next podcast, I'll be talking about NHL storylines to watch for post-Olympic break.